In this video, we're discussing question 14 from Practice Exam 3.1 in the fall 2021 semester in Chem 1211. And this problem is all about the Lewis structure shown right here. We're asked which of the following elements could be X in the Lewis structure below and asked to select all that apply. Now, a few things to note about this structure. X is at the center. X is the central atom. We have one oxygen that is doubly bonded and three oxygens that are singly bonded. And the singly bonded oxygens have three lone pairs each for a total of 7 electrons around each oxygen. And so the ion as a whole has a charge of -3, and furthermore, we can specify that the negative charge, at least formally, is living on those oxygen atoms, O-, O-. This means that the central X atom is neutral, and this is important for this problem because knowing that that atom is neutral and the number of electrons it formally owns in the structure, we can deduce the number of valence electrons in a neutral X atom, a free X atom. So let's work through that. So X, in a formal electron counting sense, for the purposes of formal charge, bears how many electrons? 1 from this bond, 1 from this bond, 2 here, and 1 here. What we're doing is we're splitting each bond in half and giving one of those electrons to X. And so we can see then that X has 5 valence electrons in this structure, 5 valence electrons. And this tells us immediately that X must be an element in group 15. So I'm looking at the answer choices, and let's pick out the elements that are in group 15 of the periodic table. Group 15 is the nitrogen group. This includes nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, and bismuth. And if we go back to the answer choices here, arsenic, phosphorus, and nitrogen all appear here. Now, before we submit this, let's take another look at the X atom from the perspective of the octet rule. How many electrons does X have around it total? What is the total electron count, or the electron count for the purposes of the octet rule? Well, let's take a look. I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 total electrons around the X atom. That X atom is displaying an expanded octet. And there we're counting all of the bonding electrons for that central atom because in some sense that atom thinks, quote unquote, that it owns all of the electrons in both of those bonds, at least for the purposes of, in all of those bonds rather, for the purposes of the octet rule. And so the only choices here that are correct are those elements that can tolerate an expanded octet. And of the 3 we selected, nitrogen cannot tolerate an expanded octet. Nitrogen does not violate the octet rule for our purposes, certainly in an expanded octet sort of way. So the only correct choices here are phosphorus and arsenic, those group 15 elements that can tolerate an expanded octet.